Hello, it's Alyssa with Holistic Living. Welcome to part 3 of June's tarot read. So for this question, I wanted to ask, what can we see as far as family dynamics go for June? Are we looking at changes? Are we looking at, rough patches? What can we see? So we've been talking about this for a little bit, how things will shift. We're going to see some exits. We're going to see some people, creating some distance, some boundaries. But for June specifically, I'm getting there's going to be a lot of inner fighting. There's going to be a lot of power struggles. So I feel like people heavy in their ego who are still fighting their awakening journey are going to be heavily triggered. They're going to have a difficult time being around people who are not that way, or at least being around people who see things, from kind of a higher perspective as far as the awakening journey goes and the matrix versus 5D. So I do feel like those, though, that are awake, and I think people have been kind of struggling to balance this for a while, are going to have a harder time. It's like trying to balance how they communicate, trying to balance how they go about dealing with people in this way. Because I get that there's some inner fighting, some mental fighting, like, but they're my so-and-so, I should do this. Not right now, because this card tells us, Wheel of Fortune tells us that it's karma, it's fated, it's the soul's purpose, it's your own journey. So it's like not to fight that is, I think, the message. Kind of go a little more with the flow. I do those with this card. Ace of Pentacles are physical changes. So we are going to see physical changes in households and family dynamics, in relationships, and all that. So there are going to be changes in June. There have been little changes all along, but I feel June is a big shift. This is a big karmic month that we've talked about. So it's going to make a lot of physical things different. So relationships, maybe divorces, separations, moves for people, maybe, so there's going to be a lot of that. Some people trying to balance maybe their elderly parents, or trying to balance maybe more with their children and their new dynamics. So there's going to be a lot of shifting here. So with the Knight of Swords, though, I feel like this is all for good balance. This comes in and sweeps things up very quickly in the physical space. This is like a charging card. So the good energy comes charging in and forces physical changes. So it might mentally, with the sword, kind of rattle people or make people overthink or make people, create anxiety for themselves. So I get that people are going to have to be a little more with the flow. They're going to have to try to understand that there's bigger purpose to this. And so it's not, people are going to have to surrender to it. They're going to have to surrender to the old dynamics, to the old ways, to how things used to be, in order to move where the path that you chose and your soul has chosen and other people's souls have chosen going forward. So I feel like that's going to be the biggest hurdle for June, is how all this stuff is amping up and shifting around, that it may make people a little bit anxious. So this is strategy. So it's all for a purpose, it's all for a plan, it's all for a bigger strategy. And this reminds us to be patient with that plan. So I hope that helps, and stay tuned for part 4.